God, welcome, 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 everyone. This is going to be such a great thing. I mean, I've been thinking about for the longest time how I was going to end these, because 4 years and 200 of these, and it wasn't even enough. So we're going to actually do one next week. I didn't realize at the time, and I think Mindy actually brought it to my attention, that this was actually going to be on Passover. So one of the reasons I did a second one is in case people couldn't make it today, we would do it next week. So that was bad planning on my part, for sure. For those of you who are celebrating, I'm definitely feeling it today. Already one day out, missing some of the bread and everything, but we'll make it work. But I want to invite everyone here. We're just going to have conversations today. I mean, some of us have met in person. Some of us will meet in person later on. We come from all different walks of life. So, and I think I met all of you through different networking events. And I don't know if all of you know each other per se. So why don't we just, Tegan, Mindy, why don't we just go around and just have everyone introduce themselves to each other as a starting point? That would really be great. Tegan, why don't we start with you?
Hey everybody, I am Tegan Bartos, founder of Jolt Your Career. Very similar to Ken, I used to work for the Department of Labor WIOA grant, moved on to being a recruiter, and now help job seekers with their resume and corporate organizations modernize their TA functions. So I was just looking in the results here. Ken, you already have over 60 people joining in just the first minute. So this is going to be an awesome episode today. Happy 200.
Thank you very much. Now, Mindy, Sue Griffey, Christopher, Brenda, we're all part of Brenda Miller's VIP Rockstars group. So Mindy, why don't you get it started?
I brought my toast. I'm giving a toast to Kenneth Lang for 200 LinkedIn Lives, an inspiration to all of us. Thank you so much for doing what you do. What I do is I bring people together. I am a career coach and a leadership development coach. I love to help people just be their best, and whatever that takes, I'm going to help you get there. So love to be in this group. I know so many of you. I'm looking forward to meeting the ones that I don't know, but I know we're all here to serve other people and help them to be the best that they can be. I believe that's one thing that we all have in common for sure, from those that I know. So thrilled to be here. Congratulations, Kenneth. Happy to be on this call with you.
Thank you very much. And Sue Griffey and I actually met in New Jersey. That was really cool. You were on the way up, I think, from Maryland. So that was really cool.
We did. I actually met you, though, in May of 2020 when Absolutely Abby had you on. Yeah. When before there were all these tools we now have for video. I'm Sue Griffey. I founded Sue Mentors. I have a global mentoring practice around the world with people in transition. I've been doing it for a decade and a half. I am known as the mentor with pom-poms. You'll see me bring out my Mardi Gras pom-poms for everything. But Ken, I'm especially thrilled, number one, that you're celebrating yourself in this huge accomplishment. It made such a difference to me in the first year of COVID, especially because I was able to join a learning community, which wasn't available to all of us then, but also for the way in which you brought in different experts and didn't just land on, this is how you do it, it's my way, kinds of talking heads. So thank you and congrats again. And that won't be the last time you see the pom-poms today.
No. Christopher Johnson, the voice of radio.
Congratulations, Ken. Yes, Christopher Johnson. My company is Calm Clear Communications. And what I do is I utilize my background in tech and broadcasting to help people have a smoother virtual event. I take away the tech headache. So I work with speakers, trainers, authors, so that they can focus on their message. And yeah, it's a thrill to be here with you, Ken, and all these assembled guests.
So thanks. Now, Gina Riley and I, Gina, we haven't had a recent conversation, but we're going to have another one because Gina is going to be part of my event coming up next month for the college students and the networking, because that's one of the things I'm going to be branching out to is different events themed by month. So Gina, I don't know how many people you know here as well, but this is just a great place to build out the relationships.
Yes, thanks for having me on, and thanks to new friends and people that I'm connected with here. I'm super excited to see everyone. Thanks for having me. I have an HR background, executive search, and I I do career coaching with executives and leaders who are in career transition, and excited to be here with everyone today.
And then there's Brenda Miller. Oh, would you put fan of Kenneth in there? Oh my God. I'm a fan of you, Brenda. And I tell this story all the time. You were one of my mentors on this platform, and I don't think you ever realize it, but we've just kind of stayed in touch over time. And what you've done on between the Friday groups and the other things you do, you're even more all over the place than I am. And I don't know how you do it.
Maybe that's a good thing, or maybe that's a bad thing. And I am starting to move more of my open to anyone sessions into close to my client groups and things like that. But the Friday VIP calls will continue. Hey everyone, Brenda Meller. I help job seekers, solopreneurs, and employees to get a bigger slice of the LinkedIn pie. And delighted to be here, and happy Passover and happy 200 episodes, Kenneth. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you very much. Now, Virginia Franco and I think we met on Clubhouse, if I'm not mistaken, and she and Claire Davis and I, we do a Lions and Tigers and Resumes thing all the time, and we've just had a lot of fun with it. So Virginia, we've gotten to know each other really well. And this year, I know I am going to try to get down to North Carolina and Georgia. Yay! That is my plan. Trying to work it out, whether it's going to be a family thing or just my wife and I. So welcome, Virginia.
No, thank you for having me. And I know we started talking on Clubhouse, but we must have met before somehow that prompted us to get together on Clubhouse. And I don't recall how that is, but I'm very grateful to know you. Echoing what other people said, I love how you've always just brought people together, brought voices together, and you don't care about the medium. You'll do it on video, you'll do it on audio, you do it on LinkedIn posts. And so very grateful for you. I think I know most of the people in this group. And just I follow all of you. I love what you have to say. For me, I'm a writer first and foremost. I've been writing resumes since before I knew anyone could do it for a living. And I started my company writing resumes, LinkedIn profiles, all of the career marketing collateral for people with complicated job stories. I started that back in 2008, and I'm still at it.
And then there's Bob McIntosh, who I will not hold against Bob McIntosh that you're a Patriots fan, because we both share the Red Sox.
Oh, right, because they're so lousy. But hey, Ken, thank you for having me, and thank you for reminding me of Miller rock stars. Wow, Brenda, you put so much work into that. It's amazing. So I work at an urban career center. It's called Mass Higher Lowell Career Center, and I must reach about thousands of people a week. And I've had Tegan and Virginia on, Virginia twice and Tegan on to talk to my folks. And I just really appreciate that. I appreciate both of you for doing that. And I'm probably going to tap into some of you to do it in the future, but thank you for that. So I do webinars. Thousands of webinars. And I also meet one-on-one with the higher level job seekers here at the Career Center. So thank you for having me, Ken.
Thank you, Bob, for the call out, by the way, in the most recent post. That I did not expect.
When you least expect it.
We all make each other better. That's the thing I wanted to bring up as much as anything else with the networking and job search. We all got to know each other in all different ways. And I always have felt this idea of collaboration, bringing people together to share best practices, and we all learn from each other. So I really wanted to make today just a basic conversation, and we can go in any direction anyone wants to. I mean, those of you that are on my events know I don't have an agenda. I just have conversations with people because I gave that up a long time ago. It's wherever things go. So if anyone wants to start, I'm actually going to, I see Gina put in what hot topics are on your mind about careers? I mean, is there anything specific? I'll tell you, I'll start it out. We're having Leah Harrison. We actually, I think I sent it to a couple of people here. We had a couple of people actually on their LinkedIn profile. They'd used AI to create an about section, and a recruiter saw the same about section on 3 different profiles. So he got a red flag about that. Like, I'm not going to reach out to any of you because you're not putting any time and effort into that. You're using AI pretty much to do your work for you. So that was kind of a new thing for me. Just the whole idea of AI being not just a reference tool, but people are actually using it. instead of what they should. So I'd be curious to get some thoughts about that.
So Kenneth, here's the thing that's so interesting. I think maybe a month ago was the first time one of my clients actually used AI completely for his profile.
Mm-hmm.
I have never used my proofreading skills more than I have since that started. He posted on his profile, "You are everything. You're a leader. And I called him right away. I said, "Do you realize that you have your in your profile, in your about section? It's about you." So he had AI write it, but he never read it. He just kind of plopped it in there, and it just sounded crazy. So I went in and fixed it all. But people have to understand that AI is just, think of it as a suggestion and not the be all and end all. You know yourself better than AI ever could. AI is simply pulling information from wherever, in this case, it was from his profile. But if you're not going to review that and fix it to make it your own, no one's going to think that it's you. It doesn't even sound like you. So I think we have a long road ahead of us to help people understand that you cannot just completely rely on AI and say, well, AI is smarter than I am. It's not. It's just a tool.
Well, from a recruiter perspective, it's a really easy way to just kick people out, because as we're sourcing profiles, if you haven't put thought into your own brand, how are you going to show up to work? That's an easy pass.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it's a wonderful tool for people who struggle with writing, where maybe English isn't their first language, but it definitely requires a pass through at the very least, because otherwise when you read it, you just can't put your finger on it, but it doesn't feel like there's a real person behind it. And I'm actually seeing a lot of people using AI in the comment section as well. And it just sort of feels off when you're looking at it. So it's a great starting point, but definitely requires a good bit of editing.
I know one thing I do a lot of, because I don't know, I get so many different resumes with so many different types of job titles, and I've never heard of most of them. So what I will do is I will use AI to kind of give me an idea, what does the person do as a starting point? And then I will put in the about section, I think this is an idea of what you do, but you need to put this in your own voice. Right. And I'll say, this is just a suggestion, because I can't know all the different job titles. And I just use that as an idea. This is what I think you do. And I will put in boldface, you need to make this yours. Don't take this verbatim, because it's a starting point. You know, I can't know what everyone does, but I want to have a starting point as to at least so I can have a conversation. And I think that's one of the things. It's a reference tool, you know, above anything else. And I think that's really helpful, whether it's looking for interview responses. But I've actually done demos, and we've actually put together in a LinkedIn connection request. I've had someone give me a specific LinkedIn connection request for an industry and a job title, and they see it there, and I say, this is great, but don't use it. You know.
What I like to say
when you're in, oh, sorry, Gina, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I like to think of it as garbage in, garbage out. What you put into it is you'll reap the benefits if you spend the time on the front end to come up with effective prompts, to put in authentic things about yourself and feed that into whatever AI you're using. I've been using ChatGPT-4 and creating specific folders for specific types of work, whether that's a client or whether that's articles I'm writing or LinkedIn posts. But my outcomes are so much better when I really think about what it is I want out of using the tool. But never cutting and pasting and using anything directly. It just never sounds like me. And what Virginia said rang true for me. There's something a little off. For me, whatever I'm putting into the system, I constantly get a prompt, or I'll get the beginning sentence of, in the landscape of careers, ... As soon as I see the word landscape on any post, I'm like, oh gosh, you know. So there's these trigger words that I think AI continually uses.
I think I'm seeing a lot, not just from more junior emerging professionals, but those who are really tired of job seeking. where they're using it and they aren't using it as a tool, they're using it as the words. But what's happening, and what I think all of us used to see before AI, is they can't then talk about themselves.
Right.
So they may have put something in a cover letter, and if they just take what ChatGPT writes, someone will ask them about it in an interview and they're stymied about it. So I've been telling everybody, you've got to stop being generic. You know, before it was generic 24/7, mission critical, organizational culture I can adapt to. That were the words 5 years ago. Now it's whatever generic ChatGPT, and they still can't speak to it. So I try to get them, like you, Ken, I do a lot of, let me show you. And so I pull out one thing and say, what about this? So I think we're all seeing that. But my challenge has been, how do you get busy young students? How do you get busy older professionals who are just trying to make money because they've been out of a job for a year and they're doing 50 applications a week? I'm trying to find a way to not be too burdensome, because they hear you need to take it and review it and adapt it. And they're like, oh, I already have to adapt my resume and everything else. So that's what I'm hoping some of you have answers to today.
So first of all, I do a webinar on ChatGPT in the job search, and Ken spoke to my folks about ChatGPT. So I believe in it. I don't believe in it as a writing tool, but I do believe in it as research, such as target company list, interview questions, position descriptions, and so forth. But I think it's a cop-out if people are just going to use it to write their resume, LinkedIn profiles, and leave it at that.
See, the other thing which I find a lot of, and I wanted to get some feedback, I look at a lot more resumes now than I ever wanted to, and I see so many ridiculous words. Yeah. Words that have absolutely no purpose. And I actually did a few posts about it, and I've actually commented to my clients. And some of my bugaboos are successfully completed. Geez, if it wasn't successful, why would you put it on the resume? Right. Or if it wasn't successful, why don't you talk about how you solve the problem? But it's these throwaway words that are on there, or the idea of like responsible for. Yeah, okay, that's great. You're responsible for.
Number one.
Participated in. I mean, all these things which don't really lend themselves to anything more than just the old resumes. 20 years ago, maybe you wrote that. And, resumes are now accomplishment driven. And that's what I see too. I see a lot of task lists on resumes. That's great. Now tell me what's in it for me as a hiring manager. And that's a big thing for a lot of people to grasp. I know, Virginia, you and I, we've had these conversations again and again about that.
I think it's important for us all to acknowledge how stressful getting laid off is and how big of a hit it takes on your confidence. And so when I see people who are using ChatGPT as a crutch to write for them or speak for them, it's because they're at an all-time low confidence-wise. And they think that the technology is going to produce something better than them because they can't figure out what's going wrong in their job search. And or they just are so devastated by the fact that they were laid off. And so giving everybody a little bit of grace if you're tuning in and are a job seeker right now, we all get that.
Yes.
And so we're not here to bash you.
No, absolutely not.
In the tool, I think a lot of us actually are advocating to use it, but use it strategically. Use it strategically to do research, to figure out where the market's at, to identify target companies, to have a brain dump, because it's really difficult to read the label when you're inside the jar. So if you just word vomit and ask it, hey, can you organize my thoughts? That right there just takes hours out of what would otherwise be an excruciating process for you to do. So Brenda, I'm sure you have something to add on to that.
I always feel like in these big groups, I'm never going to speak up and like interrupt over someone. So I'm like, I'll just I go back to like elementary school when I was an introvert, and I'll raise my hand until the teacher sees me and someone calls on me. I want to we're talking about AI and everything. And I feel like I would be remiss if I didn't say there's some really good AI tools out there that job seekers should be using. Things like Grammarly, and the your and there and things like that, like the common misspelled words that you miss. I mean, Grammarly is an AI tool. It's not writing it from scratch for you, but it's looking at it and saying, hey, here are some typos, or you might be a little bit more succinct. So for people that are using English as a second language, or copywriting does not come natural to you and you don't understand possessives and adjectives and punctuation marks, like there are tools out there like Grammarly that can help you with it. So don't fear AI, because there's some tools out there that actually are doing some good for us.
So I'm going to post this question here, which is a question we're going to all have different thoughts on. The appropriate length of a resume. First of all, I'm going to give you my take. My take is it depends. There is no one right or wrong size. I've done senior resumes that are 1 page. I've done others that are 3 pages. Then when you get into academia, I've seen 8 or 9 page resumes because they have all their patents and they have all their publications. But I'd be curious to get a sense, because we're all working with different types of job seekers. I know 2 pages is probably the best, but does anyone have any thoughts about what size you recommend, whether it's industry specific or maybe career specific? Virginia, what about you?
Well, what you were alluding to earlier with the academic resumes, those are actually CVs, curriculum vitae, and that's a whole nother beast. So if you're targeting roles, not on the university's administrative side, but on the academic side, or you're a scientist or in the medical profession, then you need a document that lists every single thing you've ever done since the dawn of day. Federal resumes, if you're looking for a role with federal government, that sort of style works as well. It's called a federal resume. But the rest of corporate America, what you are looking for is a document that's really your brochure. It talks about the highlights. It's written with the job target in mind. My rule of thumb with page length is I usually can keep a college kid or someone with less than 5 years of experience to about a page. Or if someone's been sort of in the same role for a really long time, I can keep it to a page. After that, I am perfectly comfortable going to 2 pages, and I will go on to 3 when someone has, a lot of degrees or a lot of certifications, or you want to highlight, some highlights of some publications they've done. It's sort of like an addendum page. Or you maybe want to have their first 15 years on the first 2 pages and then synopsize your relevant earlier stuff. Then I'm okay going on to a 3rd page. But I won't go on to a 3rd page until I've made sure that my writing is as tight as it can be. If I've, played with the formatting and the font condensation and using all my word hacks to see if I can't get it to 2.
Brenda, anyone else want to chime in? I mean, no.
The one thing I want people to remember that that I think is helpful is, if you do go over 2 pages, I in the job postings I've seen the last year and a half, it just says resume. It doesn't say 2-page resume. Luckily, that's disappeared. But no one's going to scroll down very long. They're never even going to get to the 2nd page. It's just there just in case, and to have all the place for the words to go into the ATS, I assume. So I tell people the goal is to scroll. You want to get past the first screen, which is the first half of your first page, and then hope they'll scroll down more. So I think it's good to aim for 2 pages, but I also, in the global audience, 3 to 4 pages is fine. But the US market, I reassure them that they're probably not, no one's going to get dinged, because I haven't even seen it specified recently. So just in terms of job postings, they don't say that anymore.
I mean, the other question I wanted to just call out to the group, because this is another question I get again and again and again. We all talk about putting skills on a resume. There's different types of skills. There's technical skills, there's core competencies, there's areas of expertise. Call it what you want to. But do any of you have an idea as to what would make the best way to portray it? Like, let's leave IT out of the equation for now, because IT, you can have 20, 30, 40, whatever the skills are. But in terms of other things, do you have any thoughts as to what would be the best way to get that across? Because I go back and forth with different people. So I'd be curious to get a sense of what you all have to say about that.
I don't think there's a one-size-fits-all solution for every job seeker. You need to evaluate how you're going to position yourself and what would be the most advantageous way to do it. And so for one leader, like a tagline and then some high level skills underneath it might suffice, because there's going to be so many keywords and context throughout the resume. But then other keywords might be a little bit more difficult to infer. So you want to have that high level, 2 lines of skills, or maybe like a featured accomplishment section at the very top where it talks about like the couple of top things. But there is no one size fits all. And that is probably, for those of us who are resume writers, probably our biggest beef with templates, is that if you're not uniquely positioning yourself based on what your goals are and what your unique value proposition is and your top selling points, then you're going to blend in.
I agree with that. And the more senior you go, the less I rely on those skill lists. I will tend to insert them more when I'm dealing with mid-level folks or roles that are a little more technical, where I will have a tech snapshot that includes some leadership skills, but also some tech acumen.
I also have not a problem. I'm also challenging my resume, my clients, to think about the acronyms that they have on their resume, because if it's not intuitive to your audience or me, then now pharma is a whole different discussion in many ways. But in some cases, if I don't know what it is, you may have to spell it out, because it may be very specific to a company, or it may be specific to a situation. And I think the challenge for me is, how do I portray these comments that I'm sharing with you in a positive light? Because I get a lot of people, like I'm sure we all do, that don't want to be beaten down, and they don't want to feel like, you're really going into me. So I think that's part of the challenge, is how do you come across in a positive way so that we mean well, but there's still work you can do.
I've got just a comment, because someone put a comment about taking a look at their resume, and another person suggested to use ChatGPT. And one thing that job seekers can do is take their current resume and feed that in with a job description that they're applying against, and ask ChatGPT to come up with the top 20 words and phrases that are not represented on the resume. So there's different creative things that people can be doing to get those clues, aside from all the other, there's paid and unpaid, tools to use as well. I'm sure people on the panel here also have other suggestions, but that's something that the job seeker that's in the comments right now, that's something that they could do.
And Linda put down, the most important part of your resume is the top third. You really need to grab my attention and show me how you fit before I decide whether to skim further. That's why we like to have some statement on the top with accomplishments and maybe skills to get them to read into more. But even so, not every resume is the same type.
I think it's important to note, for resume writers, the top 1/3 portion of the resume is most important, because that's where you can sell yourself. From recruiters, we skim job titles and companies first, because if our hiring team isn't going to, if you don't have the exact background that our hiring team is looking for, it's an easy pass in a couple of seconds. I'm not even going to read that summary statement unless you have the experience that I'm looking for off an initial skim. And so, yes, having that target job title and maybe having a tagline that really stands out, which is why a lot of people like to use the skills section, because when skimming, those pop out easier than having to read the summary statement. But as recruiters, we function very differently than the hiring team. And so there's different phases that you have to take into consideration when resume writing. It's the initial parsing when applying to a role, to make it easy so you're not spending all day rewriting the darn thing. There's the recruiter skim. Once you make it past the initial skim, it's the recruiter deep dive. And then it's the hiring team, because hiring is a consensus decision at this point for the majority of organizations. It's getting people across the organization to be able to look at your resume, and they're all going to be looking at different things. An operations leader is going to be looking at something different than a finance leader. The technical leader is going to be looking at something different. They all want to make sure that their KPIs and the cross collaboration that's important to them is hit there. So they're going to be skimming for different things. So it's really easy to say the top 1/3 is most important, but there's a lot more that goes into it than that.
So Bob, I wanted to get your perspective from your clients. When they come in with their resumes and things, are there certain things that you want to work with them on first, or things that they need maybe a little more help with from your experience?
Yeah, well, I find that the first thing I need to help them with is readability. I mean, some of them bring in resumes that are so dense that I don't even want to read them. And, you know, so we go over that, we go over paragraph length, bulleted item length, and so forth. And then I see a lot of tasks and duties that have no quantified results. And I tried to think, you know, I tried to make them think about, okay, so what was a result of this action? Because there's always a result, whether it's positive, neutral, or negative. And you know, then I talk them through it. You know, if I have time, because I only get an hour with each person. Mm-hmm. And so if I have time to ask them questions about what they did, then it draws out the accomplishments, you know. And quantified accomplishments as well. So readability, but I wanted to just go back to when we were talking about paid services for keywords, right? Like job scan. The last 2 clients I had, I ran them through job scan to see how their resumes matched up against jobs they were applying for, you know, for human consumption, not anything to do with the ATS, but really, you know, how their resumes were matching up to the jobs that they were applying for. A lot of them were sending the same tired resume to every position, and they were getting, like, according to job scan, too low a percentage, or maybe 25%. So yeah, there are a number of things that I have to work on with them.
Sure. So who else wanted to chime in? I didn't want to cut anyone off. Go ahead, Sue. Oh, sorry. Then Virginia. Okay.
I wanted to go back to your comment, Ken, about how do we help people who are already beaten down, who need the corrections we can make in a positive way. And what the people I work with love knowing is, number one, they're not the only one. And number two, why is this going to help them, or how will it help them? And so even things like acronyms, I mean, the good thing, I'm thrilled, Bob, that you talked about readability. I work a lot on readability and scannability. Capital letters and even initial capitals in a couple bullets will attract the eye to scan over to the end, not just the left margin. But the minute that they see something the brain doesn't recognize it, it puts a question mark in our brain. I'm simplifying the neuroscience of this. So I take a lot of time to say to people, I know this seems really funny, especially for Sue. I'm like such a grammarian, but it really will signal to people better if you rephrase it this way. So, you know, active voice. Please get rid of passive voice and what I call caveat clauses, you know, like when I was blah, blah, blah. And the important part of the sentence is way over on the margin. Now you've heard a summary of where I go with things.
Virginia?
I really love what Tegan had to say about how you're dealing with different readers, which makes tough order for a little 2-page document. There's so many moving parts. But recognizing that you might have a referral partner that bypasses a recruiter. There might be a hiring manager that bypasses a recruiter. So then you focus on that top third. But if you're trying to write a document that sort of, I guess, splits the baby, or whatever that term is, where you're trying to write for both audiences, if knowing that recruiters, you know, read top and then they read to the left, which is the company names, the job titles. What I'll do is think about, okay, what's the value? Is it that my client worked with some of the biggest names in this industry? Then I might bold the company name and focus less on the title. But if the title and the progression is more important, I might reverse that and use my light design elements like bolding, like shading, to focus on the job titles, because I know recruiters are looking for that match. So you're sort of balancing those two in your document. And I think that there's a way to try and do both.
Mm.
The other question we get a lot of, and there's again no one right or wrong answer, is how far back do you go on your resume in detail before you just list the different jobs, maybe without the dates? I mean, it's previous experience, because I work with people that have been with the company for 20, 25 years, same job. And I basically minimize their earlier experience without the dates, but it's still part of where they were. And as opposed to someone who's done 10 jobs in 25 years. And it's a little bit different conversation, but it's really about putting yourself in the best light. And I don't have all the answers per se, and everyone is different that way. But people are so afraid of, they read so much information out there, and there's so much information that's just not that good. So that's why I wanted to get this panel together, just based on our best practices, because I learned from all of you and we'll learn from each other. So I'd be curious to get some thoughts about that, length of the resume and how far back we go chronologically. Christopher?
Well, one of the things, go back or include what is pertinent to that job that you're seeking. So if you had that experience 15 years ago in a different industry, but it is relevant to the job you're applying for. Like, I've always been curious about this, and that curiosity began when I took this job as tell the story, make it easy to understand why you included that, and then share that information.
Yeah, I actually worked with someone that had worked at Bristol Myers Squibb, and he did something 25 years ago. And I told him when I did the past experience, I took it off. And he said, why? I said, no one's going to see it. So I said, when he said, but I'm still proud of it. So I said, put it down as an accomplishment, put it down at the top, because if it's something that's still relevant, the world should know about it. It's not a one size fits all thing, but that comes about from me having a conversation with someone, as opposed to me just looking at a resume and doing a chop job or parsing it out, because I don't know until I learn from the person what's relevant. And that's why maybe we can't meet with everyone all the time, but we have conversations with people and we try to learn from them in any way we can. Mindy?
Yeah, Ken. So what I find is what is the most difficult thing for people who have lived their lives is to figure out the why. Figure out why this line item in my resume is important to the people I want to be reading my resume. What did I accomplish in this particular job? What was important about what I did? What were the results? And it is so difficult for some people to figure that out because they're so accustomed to listing tasks, right? Or I was responsible for that kind of wording. But it's almost the reverse. You really need to think about what was the end result of what I did at that company and how will that matter to my future employer. And I think that's the biggest challenge that I have with clients is getting them to think about it in the opposite, in the reverse of, I don't know, I did X, Y, and Z, but what is the value to the new employer? And thinking about that and thinking about all the things that we have all been talking about in terms of how we can get to be differentiated for what we have done and what skills we can bring to our new employer, it's a very big task. And that's why a lot of people, need some help. And it is use every tool that you possibly can would be my suggestion. And definitely speak to someone who has done this for a while, because it's not easy. It's not an easy task to look at your own life and say, this is the most critical, value that I have added to a particular company. It's very challenging to do. So I do recommend talking to other people who, like we have on this panel, there's so many people who can help you and are happy to help you to try to figure out what is most relevant and what's going to make you unique and stand out from the rest of the crowd, because that's really what you want to do. You have whoever is looking for a job, you have a ton of competition out there. A lot of people are applying for the same jobs. And so you've got to figure out what makes you unique and what is going to sell you to your next employer. And that's not easy to do.
I think what another challenge I find when I look at resumes is someone that's just lost their job puts the first 2 or 3 things they can think of instead of really thinking about what they've done over time, because they're in such a rush to get the resume out that they have all these accomplishments from all the past jobs, and they don't really think, maybe it takes a week or so to really go back and think about all your accomplishments. Maybe you have to distance yourself from the emotions and everything else and really get them down there, because it's hard to do. It's like, I got to get a job. I got to list 2 or 3 bullet points now, because if I don't do it the next day, what's going to happen? Well, sometimes it's a quality versus quantity discussion for sure. Does anyone else? What?
I was gonna say that's also how you end up with resumes where you see stuff like responsible for and duties, because they took their old resume that worked for them back 10 years ago, and then they slapped the new title on there just out of a sense of urgency.
I think it's important to remember that like the resume is just a foundational document. It's needed, but in the grand scheme of things, it's not the most important part of your job search.
Yeah, I would say leveraging Tegan's thought there. I think the front end work that you do to inform the resume is where the juice is, because everything that you're doing to pour into the key results, who you are, your unique value proposition, and what your target is, because what you're doing is you're showcasing also the target, because you're trying to attract the target to you. And so when you're doing all of that work, it can inform an amazing resume, and it then informs your stories for interview prep. So there's a throughput line. So you got to start with you, who you are, what are those key results that you know how to deliver? And then to Mindy's point, what she was talking about is having clarity about the target and making sure that that is what you're showcasing on your document. I spoke to a man yesterday who is part of a job seekers group and has gotten all kinds of great advice. But at the end of the day, when I looked at his LinkedIn profile, which looked visually appealing, I had no idea what he wanted to do. And this is someone who owned his own business for 20 years, experienced professional, but was going to have to work really hard to figure out exactly what he was going to offer. Because what he said was, I've done it all. And we know that when you show up with your Swiss Army knife, that the people listening to you don't know what to do with you. So you have to customize your messaging, for each opportunity and say, I'm showing up with this sharp tool. My jackknife today is going to help you with your sales strategy, or my corkscrew is going to do something else. You have to start with the thing that the decision maker needs the most, then back into the rest of the tools that you bring with your Swiss Army knife.
So before I forget, we're going to get all the comments, and if we can't get to now, we're going to respond to them later on after the event. I don't want you to think we're not following them. This is a question I have here, and this is a question I get a lot at Leac Harrison. I always customize my resume for each position. Is this a waste of time?
It depends how much time you're spending on it. 5 minutes, great. 3 hours, yes.
I mean, my mindset is this: you may have one resume for an ATS, which is a different type of version that you might send out to recruiters. And maybe there might be tweaks based on accomplishments and other things. But I think besides all that, the best way to get a job, we talk about the hidden job market, however you want to define that, it's really reaching out to people who can get you in the door, because the competition there's so much competition out there and you just don't know. And if you don't get through the ATS, you don't know why, and it may have nothing to do with you. And it's a numbers game. Back then it used to be Career Builder and Monster back in the day. Maybe not as much anymore, but it's the same idea. And you don't know when a job is posted, if it's still available, or if it's even a real job sometimes. You just don't know. I mean, and that would be a whole separate discussion too, but I'm just saying there's so many things. And as Linda Brubaker said here, customizing your resume is critical. Recruiters and hiring managers want to know what you can do for them, not everything you've done. And it's up to you to make that clear right up front. I mean, I think we all come from slightly different places, but we all have, and that's kind of a joke amongst all of us, Leac Harrison. You talk to 5 career coaches, you're going to get 8 responses. And it's probably no different than anything else, because we're just coming from our background. And that has a lot to do with it.
I think at the end of the day, we could all probably agree that the best source for landing our next role is people at the company. What are your pain points? What are you looking to accomplish? What is the hiring process like? Can you introduce me to someone? I mean, that's where the money's at right there. It just makes the process so much easier.
And I think a lot
Yeah,
of people just don't know how to do that, to be honest. More, and it's even the idea of posting on LinkedIn. And this is a comment that's so hard to get. It's so hard to get access to people. I don't necessarily agree. I think part of it is you have to be targeted in what you do. You can't just say, I want to have a job at Google, or I want to have a job in IT, or I want to have a job in New York City. You have to have the target companies. You have to have, and that's one of the hardest things to job seekers. They don't do that right away. I need a job. You really have to figure out the target companies and locations, and then make it easier that way. Because you're right. I mean, I could put my resume out on LinkedIn, which you shouldn't do, but I can say I'm open to work, and whether you put the open to work banner on or not, it's not enough. That's a whole different discussion. It's part of it, but it's not the only thing.
I mean, to me, it's like when you're trying to find a place to live, you don't go in and saying, I'll live anywhere, a high rise to a mansion. You're going to say, I want to be in this neighborhood. I need it to have this many bedrooms. This is my price range. Same thing with your job search. The place you're going to spend 40 hours a week, it's worth doing that homework to figure out what you want to do, who you might know already, what companies you'd like to target, who you need to know. That front end work is like the Disney World Fast Pass to get the interviews.
I like that. I like that a lot. Go ahead, Gina.
What I would say is, in conjunction with networking, you absolutely do need to have a couple of ideas about your target. It doesn't have to be one sharp thing, but you need to have it's going to either look like A, B, or C. And the reason why I say that is when you go take those networking conversations, or people accept that and they spend a half hour with you and they take their time out, they want to help you. They want to be able to help you. But if you don't have clarity about the direction, they can't help. And it kind of doesn't burn the bridge, but it kind of fizzles out. So you have to be clear. I'm either on a fact-finding mission from you, and this is an informational conversation, which is a little bit different than, here's the 3 things I'm looking for. Who do you know? Can you introduce me to people? So again, clarity on your target or targets, multiple, really key when you go into networking conversations.
And there's different types of conversations. When you talk to family and friends for help, they may not know the specifics of your industry, but if you give them a sense of what you're looking for and the companies, you never know. As opposed to if you're going to a job specific event within the industry, you can talk the jargon a little bit more. But it's maybe it's not an elevator pitch, but you have to be able to explain to different audiences what you're looking for. Or maybe it can be, do you know someone at company A or company B? Just leveraging all of that, because you never know who knows who. But if you don't ask the questions, they get unanswered. And I think that's one of the hardest things for job seekers to do, is to take that first step and get out of your comfort zone.
You know how in school, how they say there's no such thing as dumb questions?
Yeah.
When you have 15 minutes of someone who's very busy, their time, like that one resource that you can't get back, that's when you don't ask questions you could Google. That's when you prepare in advance to be really thoughtful about getting to know them and having a strong ask and specific questions pre-planned to be able to make strategic decisions. Do I want to move forward with this company? Is there an opportunity here? Is this within my wheelhouse of what I've, like how Gina was talking in Virginia, pretty much all of us, how we get that clarity before we even start our resume. This is who I am. This is what I want. This is where my career is going. Once you have that clarity, you write your resume, you write your LinkedIn profile, and you begin having these networking conversations. And when you prepare for them and you're trying to fill in all these pieces, if you're having 15-minute chats with 5 people, you can ask one question from each of them maybe, and crowdsource all of the information instead of take from one person, because that gets exhausting. I think, Ken, how you were saying, people don't know how to do this. That's sometimes where people can go wrong and not present themselves in the best light, because givers get. And so how do you find a way to be able to give in a conversation when you're trying to get a job? There's a fine balance, and I'm sure we could all talk about this way past the next step.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Mindy.
I think one of the things that is sometimes missed is that a lot of people just start networking because they need a job. But the truth is, everyone should be networking all the time. And sometimes I speak to college kids who are just at the start of their career. What a fabulous opportunity to start gathering names, to start building relationships, to start making those inroads with your professors, with your colleagues, with your fraternity, the sorority people, and then building that throughout your career. The concept of, I need a job, I have to go out and network. And Mindy said, I have to get onto LinkedIn and start talking to people. Don't wait. Don't wait. Today is not too late to begin just reaching out to one or two people every single day. Reach out and start building connections, because you never know when you can help someone, right? Because you want to be that helper person. You want to be the giver. You don't always want to be a taker. And so when you are actively looking to help people, oftentimes things will come to you as well. And so my suggestion is to think through who you want to network with and start building your network and start building relationships, because they are going to be with you for your life. That's not just for this job or your next job. It's forever. It's for finding great restaurants in a particular city. It's for everything. It is building those relationships and keeping them going. And this concept of, well, LinkedIn's only for job seekers, that is not true. LinkedIn is a professional networking site so that we can start building relationships. And I have built so many relationships even since COVID with people I have never met in person, because I believe in that networking. I believe in building relationships. I believe that it's important for all of our growth to learn and grow every single day. And if you come to LinkedIn with curiosity and a desire to learn, then you can always pick up something every single day. And I don't know, I'm sure about all of you, I learn something new every single day from so many fabulous people. And I just consider myself very fortunate to be part of a network like this. It's given me.
Did you know Microsoft updated their font last year? I had to uninstall my Microsoft Word, reinstall it, and now I've got the cool new font.
You got Aptos
this morning.
You got to learn something new every single day. I agree.
I mean, this is all LinkedIn is relationship building, and that's the most important thing. Like, if you go on LinkedIn and again, you're there to build relationships. And even if you're passively looking for a job, you're building relationships. That's not what this is about getting a job, because you never know when it's going to come up and how it's going to come up. I mean, I've met so many great people in the last 4 years. And to be honest, I asked a lot of them if they'd be interested in having a chat with me, which is how the whole LinkedIn Live thing came about. And if they couldn't, they couldn't. And if they wouldn't, they wouldn't. But that's how it all started. I was curious to learn from them. And I said, let's just have a conversation. And I've said this to people that are in job search. Any of you can do what I do. There's no barrier to entry to create an event. There's no barrier to entry to invite people. And if you can do it, I can, especially being an introvert, which I am. And that's why I say I'm an introvert at heart. I know you don't believe that, Chris, but it's true. Go ahead, Stu.
I think that there's an unexpected way we can help people better network, because networking has such a defined definition for most people. That's two words that shouldn't be together. It's everybody thinks they know what it is, and I've got to, in person, go shake hands and hand my resume. But if we talk about engaging, what that gives us is not just a two-way conversation, but people miss the fact that that is a way they can put out their own expertise. It's a way you can establish your credibility. And every one of us, no matter whether we just got out of undergrad or even high school, I've worked with some amazing people who've done some amazing things. So I try to emphasize for people, it's really engaging, not networking, as you want to do generally. Like Mindy was saying, showing up, Ken was talking about posting. All of us know, post when we can, but even commenting, finally, substantive commenting is now recognized by the algorithm. They want even more words. But we've got ways to help people disentangle the networking ball and the franticness, I think, of job seeking. I talk with my hands a lot in case you haven't noticed. But I think we can help people and reduce their anxiety over, oh, now I have to go figure out how to get someone in a company to call me back and all of that. And we all, I learned from Brenda, her warm networking recipe about following companies and employees. But just generally, I try to help people focus on engaging because I also want them to get credit for their expertise.
Well, I want to be respectful of everyone's time because I don't know if you guys have 1 o'clock calls or not, but I want to make sure that everyone has time to get set. The technology's in place, and you don't have to apologize to people for running late. So I want to thank everyone for attending. I saw that Brenda had to leave early, Chris had to leave early, Virginia, Gina, Bob, Sue, Mindy, Tegan. This is like the Waltons all over again, but thank you very much. We'll be having another event next week. I am not going away, I promise. I'm just kind of doing a little bit of a level set. Have a great day, everyone. Enjoy the week, and we will talk soon. Take care, and we will get back and going to respond to your comments. Totally promise. Take care. Bye.
Thanks, Ken.